All righty. So pretty much today, the case study is about how like communication and whatnot. So did y'all all read? Obviously, y'all all read it. So what y'all think about it?
Read
The case study?
Yeah, the case study 9 through 12 case study.
Yeah, so I thought it is quite confusing because they have feedback saying that they need to improve, but what they're doing is good. So to me, that says maybe that they need to be doing more. And what I thought maybe is there's probably really good communication between management and the people on the floor, but not maybe amongst the people on the floor. So my solution would be to have cross training, so that way people can meet each other and see what other people are doing and have a better understanding what everybody is doing on the library floor, not just like what management is doing. So you're talking to more people, not just one person ahead above you. And that way everybody feels more connected and understands how everything's going on. And I think that will make everybody a better worker. Like they can help patrons understand, like, oh, over here is where you get this, because that's what this person does. And so that way there's more cohesive communication everywhere.
Oh, no, definitely, because I work at an academic library and all that at university. And in my department, we have 2 meetings every month. One is like for the whole department saying, okay, this person and this person and this person are working on this and this and that are working on that, and so forth, so on. And then we have like, one project meeting where, okay, where are we at in the project that this like group is working on, and what is everyone doing, and what the expectations are, et cetera, et cetera. And that works out because that way, if I have any questions about a separate project, or like I get an email questioning about a project I'm not working on, I know who to go to refer them to the email, or if I have questions, go to them and all that. So definitely communication between different departments in the library or project is really helpful.
I really like. I was just gonna say I really liked what Anna said about oh my gosh, everything is just completely left my head. You made a really good point, and I should have written it down.
It's okay. Is it cross training?
Yes, thank you. Yes. Cross training across departments is always a good idea. We're actually running into that where I work at my church. It's like if one person is gone, we can't run a service because nobody else knows how to run Pro Tools or Presenter or whatever. Were you gonna say something, Genesis?
I was gonna say that when I was reading this, I was like, I don't know what they can do better. Like when I first read it, it's like, I don't know what they can do better. They seem like they're doing everything they can to make sure to communicate with the staff and all that. But then I was like, maybe they're not being clear when they're writing emails, or if maybe they don't have the atmosphere where if somebody has a question or doesn't understand what's going on, like, hey, come to me, ask questions. Maybe it's just like, you should have already understood it. We literally just talked about this. Maybe they don't have like that open door policy going on where people feel comfortable asking questions.
Yes, I have that down in my notes as well. It just, are we creating a safe place for people to ask questions? A lot of times there are miscommunications just because people are afraid to speak up. And as a manager, that's kind of your responsibility to jump in and make sure that it's a safe culture for people to ask questions, that people aren't punished for not knowing something. Yeah,
it says right there that they asked, like, how do you feel more comfortable receiving information and all that, but it didn't say anything about like making sure the employees were comfortable
Yes.
asking questions if it came up.
I want to add to that. I might be well. I am gonna be contrarian because I think they have it all wrong. I did read it, and it did seem confusing to me. However, I started thinking about it because I do so much of this stuff at work. I don't know what size organization they have, but ours is a little bit bigger and it's more compartmentalized. That we do the opposite. We don't really send emails to everyone in that matter. We try to make it more personal and more tailored to who are the stakeholders who need to know. And we really don't have scheduled meetings, and they're very scheduled, they're very cookie cut, and that's what kind of scares me a little bit. That they might be more micromanaged, be they might micromanage a little bit more than being more practical and to the point with their own situations that come at hand. And I'm kind of thinking like, what are their goals? I mean, is it really feeding the needs that they need at the library, or they're just goals that they would like to see, but maybe they don't fulfill what really needs to happen? Um, that's where I kind of see them, because I did see that they're more of a they want to take an approach of low risk, and they're given a basically an assumption that they're highly effective of it because they have a routine, simple program styled approach to it, versus maybe it's a little different on the floor. Maybe there is a disconnect. Maybe the people on the floor are spiritually something different, where they have to have a complicated situation, or they need to take an intercomplicated program style of doing things, which only tailors to the situation and the stakeholders.
Oh yeah, because we've all worked in a place where uh people on the floor, employees and all that, they
Yes.
deal with stuff that the management doesn't even think of or dismisses. And it's kind of like they're not even in touch with reality of the issues.
Yes.
And maybe they're not accepting that and taking that into consideration when planning out the goals and whatnot.
That's true.
Yeah, when I first read this prompt, this scenario, I kind of agree with Genesis and Anna in that I was like, well, overall, I feel like they handled the situation pretty well. I did go back to chapter 11 in the textbook for the course, and they have the 5 points for clear and effective communication, and I kind of wrote those out again and kind of went over it. And I think maybe in this scenario, I would take a look at what to communicate, like make sure that the emails that they are sending are clear, concise, relevant, well written, and that they're presented interestingly. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but sometimes at my previous library, they would send out like laws with like a bunch of jargon in it. And I'm like, I'm not reading this email. I don't know what it's saying. And also I would take a look to see if they're avoiding information overload, because it sounds like they send a lot of emails.
Yes.
It's kind of that fine line, like what Anna was talking about, between like cross training, making sure everybody's aware of everything going on, and like overpowering their brain with too much information. And then of course the other 5 points for clear and effective communication: who needs to know what, make sure you're sending the right information to the right people at the right whoever needs to know for whatever thing you're working on. Know who should communicate with whom. Have you guys ever gotten an email and was like, why is this coming from you? You're not my boss, or something like that? I wonder if some of that's going on, where it's like, ooh, this is a weird power dynamic. What's happening right now? How to time messages. I think that can be really pertinent. I know it's hard when you work at a library and everybody kind of has different work schedules to, fill in all the spots, especially if you're open like 9 to 9 or whatever. Finding a good time maybe to have them spaced out throughout the day so that you're not getting like 20 emails at 5 p.m. and you're about to leave and clock out. And then the last one that I think Genesis kind of touched on was like know how to listen and read nonverbal cues. I know not everybody's good at that, but you know, in doing that, in being very aware of how we're coming across, you know, and reading the nonverbal cues of whoever we're discussing things with really ensures that we're creating a safe place for people to ask questions and, you know, open up and say, I'm not understanding what's happening or the communication is wonky or whatever. I think Genesis, I think that was you that touched on that, Genesis, kind of making a safe place.
Another thing is time. Like y'all all touched on a bit. They're giving a lot of stuff. Like the 10 minutes training each week. Are they actually giving the employees opportunity to take that? Or because, you know, sometimes they're like, oh, you need to do this training, but then they give you a list of things you have to do. And you're like, I didn't get time to do it this week because I've been swamped. And all these emails, like you said, it's like some things it's not even pertainable to you. So at some point you just start skimming over the emails, and maybe those emails that actually are pertain to what you're working on and need to know get like lost, because it's just like so many emails on things that you don't need to like know or deal with. And it's just like, I'm not retaining any of this because it's just too much information. So management needs to like understand, hey, it's not, we have to like kind of dial down on the emails and in the information towards not just the whole library, but like maybe departments. I think maybe like a monthly email for the whole library is good, just so everybody touches base on what everybody is working on, but not weekly, because that's just too much. And maybe weekly is like a department thing or project based, and not like the whole library, because that's just too much information. It's people are going to start skimming and not like absorb the information at that point.
Yeah. I've definitely been guilty of that. Like, okay, it's
Yeah, me
summer
too.
reading program. I'm getting 40 emails a day. I'm not going through all of these all at once.
Oh,
Yeah, my department right now is working on like 15 different projects, and sometimes I get emails from like 4 projects. I'm like, I didn't even know we were working on that project. Because I'm working on 2. I'm working on a Bertel collection and on a Withersteen collection, and those are the only information I need to receive. Okay, but they're sending me collections about aviation and rare books, and I'm like, I don't know anything about this, and I'm like getting 20 emails a day minimum about like collections. I'm like, no, just no.
that's something that we've had in the past with certain person that was in a higher up position, and it just wasn't efficient. Like they wanted to send everything through email when you needed to be more quick and efficient at our branch. Um, our branch works a little different, and it's not the typical. We don't see that the typical way of doing things actually works. But I feel that sometimes people want to always send messages just to feel like they're actually being productive. But sometimes it's just busy work. I mean, I hate to say this, or hate to sound this way, because it's probably very unconventional, but we have to think on our feet because of the size of the library that we have. And that's why, like, I back up a lot of what you said, like the 10-minute trainings. Sometimes the things that we do, we cannot do it in 10 minutes. And like my boss just asked me, hey, do you want me to set aside, because we just got 2 new LAs, 2 library assistants. And she told me, hey, do you want me to set time aside for you to train them? I was like, you don't have to set any time aside, but what I can do, because we also are limited in other people, and sometimes people get sick that we have to cover, just give me like about a week and I could tailor my time to actually give them what they need one by one, because everybody learns, everybody has a different learning curve, and some people have more experience and they could get it real quick in 10 minutes, or they could take the whole hour to understand it. So I just work with everyone, and maybe those 10-minute meetings or trainings are not as effective if you're trying to bunch everybody together and say, okay, this is how it works, A, B, C, and D. And okay, you got it. Ask me any questions if you need to. Well, sometimes it's not that way. Sometimes you got to be a little bit more personal with your staff.
There's also the point, not everything is very clear cut. There's always
Yes,
like they're like,
exactly.
okay, this is a procedure to do this. But if you do it in reality, there's so many exceptions to like the process of doing it. Let's say you're working on a database, and okay, this is how you pay this database. But if this happens, you have to do this. But if that happens, you have to do this. So it's just not, communication wise, it's hard to like do training in a clear cut way, because
Yes,
there's always exceptions and little back doors that you need to work on and do and all that.
I agree. There's no
Yeah,
cookie cut way.
I'm one of those exceptions because I have a tic disorder, and so for me, sitting still for a long time does not work. So longer meetings are really hard for me, and after about a half hour, 45 minutes, I can't focus because I'm so focused on trying not to tic and distract everybody else. And so like that's one of those exceptions. Just like you're gonna have to have more frequent meetings if you have me on your staff, because I can't sit still if you have like an all day training thing that you do. I'm not going to get as much out of it as everybody else is.
Mm-hmm. We brought in a lot of interesting points, like from what seemed like a clear-cut situation, that you realize it's not very effective the way they're doing it. Does anybody else have anything they want to add?
I just like to, maybe I shouldn't add this, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there. Everything seems good on paper, and that's what's the confusing part. And that's what actually happens at some organizations. They have all these procedures that look good on paper, but they're not practical or realistic. Kind of like you mentioned before, that sometimes management might see it from one perspective, but actually we're living in a different reality. We're on the floor or out in the field.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to discredit anybody. I mean, yes, we should have a guide, right? However, there should be some type of flexibility from the higher ups to see, hey, they have to do what they have to do to be more adaptive to what they're going through. More flexibility.
I agree.
And not be penalized to be like, oh, they're not following this. So, I mean, what is it? Are you trying to get rid of me? Or do you really want productivity? Do you want things to be a little bit better?
No, I agree with you. It's just they have to understand not everything's clear cut. Not everything's going to get done the way they want it, because situations arise, exceptions happen, and the people on the floor just have to deal with it, even if the management doesn't like how they managed it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Agreed?
I think we've made a lot of good points. It's been a good discussion.
it has.
It is.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop this.